Good evening, truth seekers. Tonight, we aren't just recounting history. We are peeling back the pristine, embroidered tapestry of the 17th century to reveal the rotting canvas underneath. You've heard the tales of the Great Plague of London, a story usually told through the lens of grim statistics and famous diaries. But forget the romanticized notions of a city in crisis, of noble doctors and a resilient populace. We are diving into the reality of 1665, a reality that smelled of open sewers, unwashed bodies, and the ubiquitous, cloying scent of death. This isn't just a story about a bacterium. It's a saga of how a city's very architecture turned against its people, how fear became a currency more valuable than gold, and how the systems meant to protect the populace became the instruments of their demise. Down here, at the street level, there were no heroes. There were only victims, survivors, and those who profited from the chaos. So, before we descend into the pestilent streets, take a moment. If you genuinely find value in these darker explorations, please like this video and subscribe. Share your location in the comments. It's always inspiring to see our global community connect from every corner of the world. Now, phone face down, volume low. Let's enter the City of the Dead. Our narrative begins not with a scream, but with a whisper. It is the winter of 1664 in Londinium, a sprawling metropolis that is less a unified city and more a chaotic collection of villages stitched together by mud and timber. The air is thick with coal smoke, turning the unpaved streets into shallow mires of filth. In the parish of St. Giles, outside the old city walls, the density of human life is staggering. Entire families are crammed into single rooms, sharing warmth against the penetrating damp. Sanitation does not exist. The streets are open sewers, a primordial stew of human waste and animal carcasses. It is a paradise for rats. Death is a constant neighbor here. Typhus, smallpox, consumption make their rounds with depressing regularity. But in December 1664, a new note enters the parish records. 2 deaths, Richard and Rebecca Andrews. The official cause is listed vaguely, perhaps as spotted fever. But the midwives, the elderly women paid pennies to examine the corpses, whisper of troubling symptoms: high fever, delirium, and, most tellingly, painful, dark swellings in the groin and armpits, the buboes, the tokens of the plague. Through that winter, the disease flickers like a candle in a draft, smoldering silently. The deep cold seems to smother it, and the city breathes a collective sigh of relief. But the enemy hasn't gone away. It is merely hibernating, waiting for the warmth of spring. The question that would later haunt the city is where it came from. Like so many things in Londinium, good and bad, it sailed in on the River Thames, the city's aorta. Ships from Amsterdam, a rival city ravaged by the plague just the year before, continued to dock. In their holds, hidden among bales of expensive Dutch cloth, traveled undeclared passengers, the black rat, Rattus rattus. These rats are excellent seafarers, perfectly at home on ships. And upon their fur travel the true horsemen of this miniature apocalypse, the oriental rat flea, Xenoscilla chiopus. The cycle of transmission is elegant and deadly. A flea bites an infected rat, ingesting the bacteria. The bacteria multiply in the flea's gut, blocking its digestive tract. Starving and desperate, the flea bites again, another rat, or perhaps a dock worker's ankle, regurgitating bacteria-laden blood directly into the wound. The invasion is silent. There is no sudden explosion at the docks. Instead, the disease moves like an ink stain on blotting paper, carried from the warehouses to the overcrowded tenements, from rat to rat, and then fatally to humans. For months, it remains largely within the rodent population, an epizootic noticed only by the city's cats. But by spring, the ink stain is spreading, and it is heading straight for the heart of the city. As the winter thaws into the muddy spring of 1665, official denial is the city's policy. The wealthy merchants and magistrates have too much to lose. The word plague is poison to trade. The weekly bills of mortality continue to show rising deaths from fevers. But by June, denial is no longer sustainable. The death toll in St. Giles and neighboring parishes jumps from single digits to hundreds in a matter of weeks. The panic the authorities tried to avert finally takes hold. The king and his court are the first to flee, packing their carriages and heading west, followed by the aristocracy, the judges, and the wealthy merchants. It is a methodical evacuation of power and money. For those left behind, the artisans, the laborers, the servants, the responsibility falls to the Lord Mayor, Sir John Lawrence, a brave but overwhelmed bureaucrat. He attempts to manage the crisis using the Plague Orders, a set of draconian regulations rooted in the belief that the disease is spread by bad air, or miasma. The central pillar of this response is household quarantine. When a case is confirmed, the entire house is sealed. The sick, their families, servants, and lodgers are all locked inside together. The door is padlocked from the outside and marked with a red cross and the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Watchmen are posted to ensure no one leaves. This policy is, in essence, a death sentence. By confining the healthy with the sick in cramped, poorly ventilated spaces, the authorities create perfect incubators for the disease. The cries of the imprisoned echo through the streets, a chilling soundtrack to the city's slow demise. To enforce this, a bureaucracy of death is created. Searchers, often poor, illiterate women, are tasked with examining corpses to determine the cause of death. Their diagnoses, based on folklore and pressure from grieving families who want to avoid quarantine, are notoriously unreliable. A bribe of a few shillings can turn a plague death into consumption, allowing a family to remain free and potentially spread the infection further. Desperate measures are taken. Believing that animals carry the plague, the Lord Mayor orders a mass cull of dogs and cats. An estimated 40,000 dogs and 200,000 cats are slaughtered in the streets. It is a catastrophic mistake. By eliminating the natural predators of rats, the authorities unwittingly allow the true reservoir of the disease to explode. The army of the plague is not just unhindered, it is reinforced by the very actions taken to stop it. By July, the city is a prison. The exodus of the wealthy has crippled the economy, leaving the poor with no work and no way to escape. The surrounding towns, terrified of contagion, have set up roadblocks, requiring a certificate of health for travel, a document easily forged by the rich, but unattainable for the poor. Londinium is divided into two cities, a ghost town of abandoned mansions in the west, and a seething, terrifying cauldron of disease in the east. The air is thick with the acrid smoke of bonfires lit at street corners, ordered by the authorities to purify the air of miasma. Inside their homes, people clutch pomanders filled with spices or smoked tobacco, believing the fumes will ward off the invisible poison. The medical response is a blend of guesswork and superstition. The few remaining doctors, often second-rate physicians or downright quacks, bleed their patients or apply bizarre poultices of pigeon droppings and roasted onions to the painful buboes. Desperate people buy amulets of arsenic to wear around their necks or swallow powdered unicorn horn. The plague doctor, with his iconic beaked mask filled with aromatic herbs, becomes a macabre symbol of the age. A figure designed to protect himself from bad air, utterly ignorant of the fleas hopping at his feet. The true texture of life in the plague city is captured not in official reports, but in the private diary of Samuel Pepys, a naval administrator who remains in the city for his work. His diary is a vivid window into the psychological toll of the epidemic. He writes of the eerie silence that falls over the city, broken only by the incessant tolling of church bells, one for each death, and the rattle of the dead carts at night. Pepys documents the creeping paranoia, his reluctance to handle letters or money, his fear of passing strangers in the street. He witnesses heartbreaking scenes, a man carrying the small body of his own child to a plague pit because he cannot afford a coffin, a solitary waterman on the river weeping for the loss of his entire family. Through his eyes, we see the city's descent into a kind of madness, where every social interaction is a potential death sentence, and the structures of daily life, work, community, even the rituals of death, evaporate. September is the abyss. The plague rages with a fury that defies comprehension. The weekly death toll climbs to over 7,000 souls. In a city whose population has been halved by flight, this is statistical carnage, a Londoner dying every minute and a half. The machinery of death is overwhelmed. The churchyards are full. The dead carts, now running day and night, dump their macabre cargo into vast communal plague pits. The largest, at Aldgate, is a gaping wound in the earth, 20 feet deep and 40 feet long, into which thousands of bodies are unceremoniously tipped, layer upon layer, covered with a dusting of quicklime. There are no funerals, no mourners, just the industrial disposal of human beings. In this landscape of despair, the city becomes a realm ruled by twin monarchs, fear and faith. Fear corrodes the social fabric. Neighbors inform on neighbors. The sick are abandoned by their families. Crime flourishes in the vacuum of authority. Looters break into sealed houses, robbing the dead and dying. Plague nurses, hired to care for the sick, are rumored to smother their patients to hasten their end and plunder their belongings. Yet, amidst the moral collapse, there is also a desperate turn toward faith. The churches, many abandoned by their clergy, are filled with terrifying sermons of divine judgment. Prophets of doom roam the streets, calling for repentance. But in a cruel twist, the crowded churches become hotbeds of contagion, the very act of seeking salvation leading to infection. And there are acts of extraordinary quiet heroism. The Lord Mayor and his aldermen remain at their posts, keeping a skeletal administration running. Poor men take jobs as drivers of the dead carts and gravediggers, working until they too succumb. Some doctors and clergy stay to tend to the sick and dying, knowing each visit could be their last. Just as the city seems on the brink of total collapse, something changes. It is not a divine miracle or a new medical discovery. It is the weather. In late September, the oppressive heat of summer breaks. The nights grow longer and colder. The death toll begins a slow, unsteady decline. People whisper of providence, of God finally abating his wrath. But the truth is biological. The plague bacterium and its flea vector thrive in warmth. The cold of autumn slows the flea's life cycle, reducing its reproductive rate and making it a less effective transmitter of the disease. The rats, too, become less active, retreating from the cold and reducing contact with humans. The arrival of a severe frost in November is the killing blow. The number of new cases plummets. The winter of 1665 is a long, frigid reprieve. The survivors emerge from their homes, blinking in the pale winter sun, a population of ghosts haunting their own city. The silence is still thick, but the bells toll less frequently, and the cry of "Bring out your dead" fades into memory. The accounting begins. The official number of dead is nearly 70,000, but everyone knows the true figure is much higher, likely over 100,000, nearly a quarter of the city's population. The bills of mortality are a record of evasion and undercounting, omitting dissenters, Jews, and the countless unrecorded dead thrown into the pits at the height of the panic. The city, though deeply wounded, begins to breathe again in the spring of 1666. The king and his court return. Trade resumes. It seems the worst is over. But the city's ordeal is not finished. In September 1666, a new catastrophe strikes: the Great Fire. A spark in a baker's shop on Pudding Lane ignites the dry timber of the medieval city. Fanned by a strong east wind, the fire rages for 4 days, consuming 4/5 of Londinium. The narrow, labyrinthine streets, the overhanging houses, the warehouses packed with flammable goods, the very structure of the city that had nurtured the plague now fuels its destruction. A myth arises that the fire cleansed the city of the plague. It is a comforting narrative of purification. The truth is more complex. The fire did destroy the most unsanitary, rat-infested warrens of the poor, but the plague was already in steep decline months before the fire began, defeated by the winter cold. The fire's true legacy is not the end of the plague, but the end of the old city. From the ashes, a new London is born. Though grand plans for a rational geometric city are thwarted by property rights and the urgent need to rebuild, new building codes are enacted. Houses must be built of brick and stone, streets are widened, and the overhanging upper floors are banned. These changes, born of a fear of fire, have unintended sanitary benefits. A city of brick is less hospitable to rats. Wider streets allow for better air circulation and sunlight. London inadvertently makes itself more resilient to future epidemics. The Great Plague of 1665 proves to be the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in the city's history. The twin catastrophes of plague and fire forge a new metropolis, one that is more orderly, more regulated, and perhaps a little less human. The scar of 1665 remains indelible, a testament to a year when a great city looked into the abyss and was forced to rebuild itself from the ashes of its own dead.